A 13-year-old girl has been arrested on suspicion of assaulting a police officer at a pro-Brexit yellow vest protest in London today. Around 100 demonstrators stopped traffic and set off smoke bombs outside Downing Street as they marched through the capital during the protest. The teenager was one of 4 detained after protests on Westminster Bridge, near Parliament, at around 11 a.m. 3 men were also arrested on suspicion of public order offences, Metropolitan Police confirmed. The demonstration was one of several held across the UK as supporters called for a no-deal Brexit and declared the Prime Minister a traitor, the Telegraph reported. Smoke bombs were set off outside Downing Street, and around protesters stood in front of cars to stop traffic on Westminster Bridge. Share this article. Share. Demonstrators in high-vis jackets also marched down Whitehall towards Trafalgar Square and dramatically clashed with police officers. Transport for London said the crowd is formed up in the Parliament Square Whitehall area and are intermittently causing traffic holds. We have very little details on the demonstration, but expect further traffic holds and delays in the Westminster area. One clip from the protest shows a young girl shouting "Get off of me!" and screaming as police officers moved her as they attempted to control the march. Moments later in the footage, 3 officers push a man against a bus and appear to detain him while ordering others to stay back. James Goddard, who is believed to have organized the protest, was photographed approaching a police officer on Whitehall. Protests were also reported in Manchester, where demonstrators were pictured blockading a Greggs bakery. Mike Stutchberry wrote on Twitter, "The F-wits that like to call you a snowflake are blockading a Greggs in Manchester for selling vegan sausage rolls." For those asking, yes, it's the Manchester far-right yellow vests. A spokesman for Metropolitan Police said 4 arrests have been made following protests on Westminster Bridge, SW1 at approximately 11 a.m. today. 3 men arrested on suspicion of public order offences. A 13-year-old girl was also arrested on suspicion of assault on police. Inquiries continue. Campaigners chanted Brexit now as they stopped cars from crossing Westminster Bridge, Tower Bridge and then Waterloo Bridge as Theresa May held crunch talks with EU leaders in Brussels. About 60 people wearing yellow vests similar to those worn during protests in France gathered by the Houses of Parliament at noon to first occupy Westminster Bridge. The protesters were eventually moved on by police after about 15 minutes, before heading to Downing Street, where they chanted pro-Brexit songs before moving on to Tower Bridge. While blocking the iconic bridge for about 20 minutes, campaigners were seen angrily remonstrating with motorists and bystanders. The group wore yellow jackets, reminiscent of the Gilets Jaunes movement in France, in which demonstrators donning yellow vests have brought Paris to a standstill for the yet another weekend today. Demonstrators in France have called for President Emmanuel Macron to resign for the 8th Saturday in a row. Tear gas and batons were used by riot police on a so-called Act VA Day of Rage organized by the Yellow Vest movement. Marches were underway in several other cities across France. It followed the arrest of 33-year-old Eric Drouet, one of the group's most high-profile leaders, on Wednesday night. Demonstrators caused trouble around the River Seine, where police unleashed gas and flashballs at a crowd of around 2,000 Gilets jaunes. All were attempting to march on the National Assembly, the French Parliament, but were held back. This led to fighting on the footbridges crossing the river. 10 members of the movement have died at blockades organized at major roads around France, while hundreds of others have been injured in rioting. The Vests have been protesting since November 17, and, despite a range of concessions by President Macron including scrapping green taxes of diesel and petrol, continue to call for him to step down.